of course, people are getting themselves set there at the conference in Serena. Yes, so many people have turned up. Like we said, it's going to involve the public really in this particular discussion, and of course all the different stakeholders, the public being one of them, looking at the strategy here, you know, what they need to see as the methodology, probably some of the things they need to look at, the key things they need to look at here at the end of the day. So as we can look also the National Development Plan 3, you know, so many times we've been talking about the National Development Plan 2, and now that we're looking at some of this would be very, very critical. I must say, clearly, the minister hasn't showed up, and of course this will be starting. Real quick, I'll take you to the live feed, and straight after that, like I mentioned, we'll take you to two other events in Toro and Tororo.
Let me thank you for having delivered the President's statement so ably. Thank you, thank you. The Right Honourable Prime Minister and leader of government who is here, of government business who is here actually representing the President, my colleagues the ministers, those of you who have just come, the leader of the opposition, I don't see her here, honourable members of Parliament, our development partners, ladies and gentlemen. This conference kickstarts the consultation on the budget for the next financial year, which is 2021, which is the first year of implementation of the third National Development Plan. The third National Development Plan seeks to consolidate the cumulative gains that we have made over the previous plans and unlock the new opportunities for all Ugandans. In the second National Development Plan, we set ourselves a goal to attain the middle income status. We have made significant strides. Every Ugandan, on average, a Ugandan now earns $825 per year. By the closure of the plan in June next year, we'll have moved even closer to the middle income goal of $1,039. Let me repeat this. Every Ugandan now, on average, earns $825 per annum. By the closure of the plan, which is in June next year, we will have moved even closer to the middle income goal of $1,039. Beyond the monetary measures of progress, it is noteworthy to mention that we have already laid a firm foundation for this economy to thrive. You remember? The stock of productive social service, trade, and export infrastructure has been increased significantly. Consequently, export earnings increased from $3.4 billion to $5.3 billion between 2011 and 2018. And overall, the size of the economy more than doubled from Uganda shillings 46.9 trillion to 109 trillion within the same space of time. Several key non-income development targets of the second development plan, especially those relating to quality of life, have already been achieved ahead of schedule. For example, life expectancy is currently at 63 years. This is above the target of 60 years by the year 2020. The increase in life expectancy mirrors considerable improvement in the quality of social services outcomes. Most notably, the reduction in maternal mortality from 435 to 336, and under 5 mortality from 137 to 64, all between 2011 to 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, these milestones now provide a solid foundation on which the successor third National Development Plan will drive higher and more inclusive growth in the coming years, beginning with the financial year 2021, for which we are consulting today. However, the following challenges to growth will have to be addressed decisively if we have to achieve that goal. We need to address the challenges of economic growth and development. We need to address the following 5 key constraints in order to unlock wealth creation opportunities for our people. 1, the first is the low level of productivity in agriculture. And I repeat this, the low level of productivity in agriculture. Over 68% of our population is in a subsistence economy. They only work for eat, with little or no commercial endeavors. Then there is the problem of climate change also poses a big risk to the economy. Low productivity also affects minerals and tourism. As a result of low productivity, job creation, the economy has not kept pace with the surge in the number of our youth joining the labor market. Challenge number 2. The second is the uncompetitive private sector as a result of high cost of electricity, transport, and money, as the President has said in his speech. As a result, Uganda has not been able to benefit fully from the abundant regional and international trade opportunities. 3, the existing gaps in social service delivery and widening inequality coupled with increase in poverty from 19.7 in 2013 to 21.4 in 2017. Most alarmingly, 56 of Uganda's children suffer from multidimensional poverty in Busoga, Bukedi, and Mugisu, which, along with the Karamoja, Acholi, and West Nile, rank amongst the poorest sub-regions in this country and are very densely populated, so you can imagine what we are talking about. They together account for 1/3 of Uganda's child population. 4th challenge, constraints to private sector investment. The cost of credit has been a major constraint to private sector in investment. Other constraints relate to the trade barriers and business regulatory gaps. 5, and finally, the 5th is inefficiency from fiscal, monetary, and administrative governance. As a result, returns on public investment are lower than expected. Also, the increase in administrative units has in most cases resulted into unplanned expenditures and the related supplementary budgets, which undermines effective fiscal operations. Now, our proposed budget strategy for this financial year we are coming to. The budget strategy for the coming financial year will be anchored on the medium-term growth and development objectives with the 3rd National Development Plan. The plan seeks to consolidate the development gains with a central focus on increasing household incomes through a resource-led industrialization drive. Special focus will also be on promoting equity, an efficient public sector, and a vibrant private sector to support this growth agenda. In financial 2021 budget, under the theme, and we are repeating this for the 3rd time, under the theme industrialization for job creation and shared prosperity, we therefore focus on the following strategic areas. Number 1, efficient and sustained exploitation of the productive sectors. Number 2, consolidating and increasing the stock and the quality of productive infrastructure to support trade, industrialization, exports, and efficient urbanization. 3, increasing the productivity, inclusiveness, and well-being of the population. And 4, strengthening the private sector to drive growth. And 5, enhancing the effectiveness of both fiscal and administrative governance. Efficient and sustained exploitation of the production sectors. The industrial and manufacturing sectors hold the most enormous potential to employ more and drive more inclusive growth and faster economic transformation. The government will therefore pursue a resource-led industrialization agenda, focusing on commercialization and value addition to the 5 areas with significant opportunities for economic transformation. 1, agro-based industrialization. 2, mineral beneficiation. 3, petroleum resource exploitation. 4, labor-intensive manufacturing and trade. And 5, scientific research and innovation. Tourism development will also be pursued. In addition, the strategy will entail scaling up measures for environmental protection and integration of climate change mitigation and adaptation actions within the development plan. Now, agro-based industrialization. A good foundation has already been laid to support the agro-industrialization strategy. Commercial agriculture is emerging in most regions with integrated agricultural value chains like nucleus farmers and outgrowers to agro-processing plants and markets. A notable example is the Bidco vegetable oil processing plant in Karangara, which closed a crucial gap in the value chain for palm oil production. The vegetable processing plant has provided a steady market to palm oil farmers and availed a steady supply of vegetable oil for both the national and the regional markets. I'm told in the Karangara today, people are asking where to spend money from. 2. That's what I've been hearing. I haven't been there, but I have heard that. They are saying, what can we spend money on? That's the story now. By just that simple, just that one case of planning. In the coming financial year, government will prioritize a replication of Bidco success story countrywide for vital commodity enterprises. The strategy will develop commodity enterprise-specific value chain solutions covering research, production, post-harvest handling, storage, and market access that will entail the following strategic actions. 1, organizing farmers into producer cooperatives or groups linked to nucleus commercial farmers, processors, who will be encouraged to add value to farmers' produce, put up efficient storage, and minimize post-harvest losses. 2, providing agricultural extension services to improve farming practices and increasing the uptake of appropriate research and technologies. We have agricultural extension officers in every district and every sub-county. Minister Sempich, am I right? In every district and every sub-county, correct? 65%. With meager resources, I've been able to provide most of those officers with means of transportation, a motorbike. I have also squeezed the budget to give them money to make sure that they have fuel, they have got something to eat when they are extending the service of the farmers. So there should be no excuse. In the coming financial, Mr. Sempich, Honorable Sempija, I will do it 100%. If you come up with that proposal, we do it 100%. So there is no excuse, therefore, for a farmer to go unguided, because we want that sector really to boost this economy. Without agriculture, I can tell you, and with the 17% of our people in that sector, without agriculture booming, developing, enhancing, pushing ahead this economy is a big challenge. So we give it all the attention and the thing that they need to move forward. 3, promoting climate-smart agriculture to reduce reliance on rain-fed agriculture and mitigate the impact of climate change through irrigation, including the use of solar-powered irrigation pumps and rainwater harvesting. There are companies we are dealing with. I hope they will soon start for them to come and manufacture solar power irrigation pumps. Big, small, medium. Even a small person who wants to water his or her vegetables during the dry spell will be able to be helped to obtain that equipment so that he can produce virtually or around the year. Enhancing rural electrification program to develop relevant rural growth centers within the ecological zones. Strengthening enforcement of regulations for standards and quality assurance. Facilitating market access for agricultural products through export development. We came back from China recently. China has opened their door to us. We can export any agricultural commodity there. There is a company that is processing mangoes, and I saw we had an expo in China in a place called Hunan, province called Hunan. That company went with 10 tons of processed mangoes, dried mangoes. I want to tell you, within half an hour, they were all gone. They were all bought. So I'm giving you the opportunity. They were all bought within half an hour, 10 tons of dried mangoes. China has opened the door for us. The only problem now, colleague Minister for Agriculture, there are two problems. One is to ensure volumes, because I've told you, 10 tons within half an hour, they were already bought. And the customers remained with a wet mouth, you know, when you have not eaten food and feed the tongue continues doing like this. They are hungry. 2, quality. The quality. The quality. You see, with international markets, once they give you an order, first of all, you must consistently supply the same quality. So that's the challenge we have. The second challenge, the challenge of volumes, to ensure we meet the orders as and when they are placed on us, but also to ensure that the quality is maintained. So that's our challenge, which we shall try to address under the system of the nucleus farmer, as you have heard from the president, but also the minister has been talking about that one. Streamlining financing of agriculture and attract investment into the sector. We shall talk about that in detail, about how we intend to, again, help UDB to come on the front. Providing medium and long-term financing and fully implement the subsidized agricultural insurance program under the Uganda Agricultural Insurance Scheme. Now, minerals. The beneficiation of the abundance of mineral deposits such as iron ore, copper, and limestone, among others, will provide economy-wide benefits far beyond creating wealth within the mineral sector. For instance, processing of phosphates, limestone, and iron ore into fertilizers, cement, and steel, respectively, provide inputs to commercial agriculture and the construction of industry, which are essential to spur industrialization. In other words, the backward and forward linkages. Good stride has been made already in the beneficiation of some minerals. A case in point is the processing of limestone into cement, which has benefited the construction industry. The total production capacity for cement now stands at 6.8 million metric tons compared to 1.6 million metric tons in 2011. Several jobs have been created as a result, and there has been a reduction in the cost of cement. Those of you who are constructing, I'm sure you know very well. Imported cement has also reduced. To replicate this success for other minerals, the budget for the coming financial year will prioritize the following interventions. 1, investment in infrastructure for exploration, that is geosurvey and mapping and validation to vital minerals. 2, establishment and review of legal framework for non-conventional minerals such as sand and rocks to support their commercialization. 3, enforcement of performance-based system for renewal of licenses. The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development commenced a development of the mining cadastre and e-business portal for renewal of mineral licenses. During the coming financial year, the sector will ensure the harmonization of the system with the URA system. The establishment of the proper inventory of national mineral resources base will also be undertaken to discover more mineral deposits. Petroleum resource exploitation. The exploitation of petroleum resources will provide a new base to the economy. So far, we have put in place a strong legal framework and established key institutions for the sector. The development of supportive infrastructure is underway. In the coming financial year, the government will need to speed up the development of oil and gas infrastructure and build local capacity to participate and benefit from the sector optimally. The following intervention will therefore be prioritized. 1, strengthening human and institutional capacity to enable promotion and licensing, effective monitoring, regulation, and management of the commercial and business interests of the state through building the capacity of Uganda National Oil Company in exploration and other upstream and midstream management. 2, finalization of the local content bid under the oil and the gas industry to promote local participation in the oil and the gas supply chain. 3, fast-tracking investment in oil-related infrastructure. Now, labor-intensive light manufacturing, export, and trade promotion. Uganda is well positioned. I told you the theme is industrialization. Uganda is well positioned to benefit from the many trade blocks that the government has established through multilateral arrangements. For example, COMESA, East African Community, and AGOA, among others. However, this will require increasing manufacturing capacity as well as addressing trade-related issues, the most problematic being the non-tariff barriers. To increase penetration of these trade blocks, the government will therefore prioritize the following interventions in the coming financial year. 1, development of the special economic zones. 2, continue development of border export zones, market program to position the country and help in harnessing the regional market opportunities. 3, enforcing standards quality through enhancing certification of products, market surveillance and inspection, laboratory analysis and testing of equipment, or used in trade and collaboration of industrial products. 4, continued investment in transport, energy, and ICT infrastructure. And lastly, 5, identifying opportunities for technology importation and streamlining the existing support to the informal sector, that is the jewel carriers. Scientific research and innovation. An important aspect of industrialization of our economy will be hinged on our ability to enhance scientific research, innovation, and technical development. A country that does not innovate is a dead country. We have to innovate. Science, technology, engineering, innovation are essential for the sustainability of our industrialization process. Therefore, In the coming financial year, the government will ensure that a holistic approach is geared towards innovation, which includes brain work and product diversification, technology adaptation, research and development. This will entail creation of an enabling environment for a concerted effort of all practitioners and stakeholders in the science, technology, and innovation ecosystem. Therefore, the following strategic actions will be undertaken. 1. Facilitate generation of novel products and technologies backed up by intellectual property rights for the innovators or inventors. 2. Establish science, technology, and innovation infrastructure and enabling regulatory environment for the national innovation ecosystem to enable harnessing the various opportunities of high potential, notwithstanding the fourth industrial revolution era. 3. Operationalization of the National Science, Technology and Engineering Skills Enhancement Center in Uganda to enhance the technological and the skills base of Uganda's graduate, craftsmen, technicians, engineers, among others. Exploiting the rich biodiversity of tourism. According to the Civil Aviation Authority, passenger traffic in Entebbe Airport has been increasing by 7% on average, year on year on. Majority attributed to growth in the number of tourists into this country. The various marketing campaigns have contributed significantly to an increase in the number of visitors, laying an excellent foundation to increase earnings from tourism sector. Unlocking Uganda's tourism sector should now go beyond efforts to increase the number of tourists. The focus should be on increasing the number of high-end tourists who come on holiday and leisure and can stay longer and are interested to coming back again. In the coming financial year, the government will consequently prioritize the following. 1. Development of high-value tourism products to attract high-end tourists with potential to higher earnings, e.g., the design and construction of Equator Monument at Queen Elizabeth National Park. 2. Provision of adequate tourism infrastructure, i.e. roads, ICT, regional aerodromes, water and sanitation facilities on tourism sites. 3. Incentivizing private sector investment in world-class holiday leisure facilities. The tourism industry taxes and incentives structure will be further reviewed to harmonize taxes and fees such as the registration of hotels, hotel lodges, license tax, and the license fees on tourism vehicles, among others. 4. Government will engage East African Community member states to operationalize the East African single tourist visa. And 5. Developing skills essential for tourism growth. The government will speed up completion of the Crest Crane Training Institute to facilitate the training of more assessors to improve the classification and grading of tourism facilities. Climate change, adaptation and mitigation. Climate change has resulted in noticeable changes in rainfall patterns. As you can see, these last few months, we got rain when we were not traditionally supposed to get it. We farmers have had a problem to dry our crops, so we need something to help us on this. And the total annual rainfall's amount is expected to reduce in the near future if this action is not taken. The changes in the climate system have consequently led to increased food insecurity, the incidence of tropical diseases and pests, land degradation and infrastructure damage caused by floods. The government will therefore take urgent action to protect the ecosystem and promote climate mitigation, adaptation and resilience through 1. Attracting climate change financing in the country through strengthening the institutional capacity of the development of the bankable projects to lobby for and utilize global climate change financing mechanism, e.g. the Green Climate Fund. 2. Enhancing efforts to reduce emissions and build resilience to climate change through the establishment of regional centers of excellence for demonstrating local champions for climate action. 3, strengthening the coping capacity of vulnerable population to the effects of climate change and disaster through adaptation and mitigation strategies entailing access to accurate meteorological information, sensitization, and the implementation of climate-smart agricultural practices. 4, leveraging of research, innovation, and adaptation of appropriate green technologies to incentivize conservation, diversification, economic opportunities for communities in vicinity to natural resources. Consolidating, increasing the stock of quality of productive infrastructure. Government has made very good progress on the development of infrastructure for energy generation and road construction, as it has been stated by the President in his statement. We now need to ensure that energy is evacuated and transmitted to production centers and household consumption units. The maintenance of existing transport and electric network and the development of urban infrastructure to support efficient urbanization is also very crucial. The following strategic actions will therefore be undertaken. In energy, 1, investment in evacuation of power from completed hydroelectric plants, the transmission infrastructure and associated substations. 2, electricity distribution and connection to last mile users, finalization of the Umeme concession extension and enabling its implementation to attract investment in the distribution segment is also going to be done. Besides, the government will intensify the implementation of the free connection policy and other rural electrification intervention to spread to the last mile user of our electricity. Information and communication technology. The government will continue expanding the national ICT infrastructure coverage by continued extension of the national backbone infrastructure. Implementation of the government net project will be critical to facilitate the last mile connectivity to service delivery centers which are currently not served. It is also crucial to attract investment in assembly, manufacturing of ICT end user devices, which has an impact on job creation. To support this, the government will put in place a supporting tax regime to attract investment and also to support the ICT innovation through the Innovation Fund, which is in place and is going to be enhanced. Transport infrastructure. Modifying existing contracts to include a provision for road maintenance over the medium and long term. This will help to improve the quality of road infrastructure as well as reduce the maintenance burden on the government for those roads. 2, rollout of the rural transport infrastructure, which is currently supporting the construction of roads using low-cost steel technologies in 20 districts in eastern and northern Uganda, and want to roll it to all the local governments. 3, investment in export corridors, that is to say, the northern and the southern transport corridors to facilitate ease and competitive access to export markets, and the expansion of the operations of the Uganda Railway Corporation railway line to cover other requisite urban centers to decongest the cities, reduce road fatalities, and improve on the traffic burden. 4, map and acquire infrastructure corridors well in advance to avoid unnecessary delays in infrastructure projects on account of right-of-way and disputes and high cost of compensation. 5, prioritize funding for the completion of the capitalization and operations of the Uganda National Airlines. And 6, prioritize funding for the 13 up-country aerodromes essential to facilitate the tourism sector. Now, regional cities and urban infrastructure. It is estimated that by 2040, over 20 million Ugandans will reside in urban areas. The majority, 54%, of Kampala residents live in slums with inadequate housing, poor sanitation, and limited access to basic services, including education and employment. In order to facilitate healthy growth of urban centers, the government will, 1, urgently develop physical plans for the approved cities, including the district and lower governments in line with the national urban policy. 2, commence work with the private sector to finance the design and development of satellite cities to decongest Kampala city and other neighboring areas. 3, continue to upgrade municipal urban infrastructure across the country. And 4, prioritize investments in urban social protection programs to alleviate high levels of deprivation across vulnerable populations with a focus on adolescent girls. Increasing productivity, inclusiveness, and well-being of the population. Improving productivity of the population. About 60% of the urban population is below 18 years of age. The government's vision to achieve Vision 20 is therefore highly contingent upon our ability to invest in children, young men, and young women. Such investment demands greater emphasis in 1, pre-primary education services and the effective implementation of the integrated early childhood development policy. 2, heightened and urgent prioritization of quality of education system, as well as 3, firm assurance of adequate financing for basic health and nutrition commodities. These areas of intervention ought to be supported by improved governance and efficiency in budget execution with a view to prioritize human resource planning to match growth and development needs. In that regard, the focus will be on skilling, social protection, and access to education and health to as many Ugandans as possible. Education and skilling. The education sector must prioritize improving the quality of the education system at all costs. The key intervention should target 1, investment in pre-primary education to improve the efficiency of UPE by better preparing students entering the primary system and minimizing the risk of high repetition and dropout. 2, the development of a more targeted approach to teacher training and management of the school inspection branch. 3, operationalization of international certification of TVET programs to uplift them to international standards will be fast-tracked to help uplift the institutes to global and competitive standards. The tooling of new public universities to improve their functionality. This should cover aspects of equipment for practical courses, classrooms, and adequate academic staff. 5, implementation of recently reviewed national curriculum for secondary education. Now, health care and nutrition. The health sector should prioritize the intervention that target 1, development of centers of excellence for delivery of specialized medical care. I hope our project in Ruboa, we shall soon move out from quarreling to constructing the project. Fast-tracking the construction, the Minister of Health is not here. Fast-tracking the construction of specialized hospital, such as the regional hospital in pediatric surgery and the international specialized hospital in Ruboa, which I've just talked about. 2, investment in disease prevention by addressing critical determinants of health in a multi-sectoral approach. Government will undertake mass sensitization. The public will take mass sensitization of the public on improving nutrition, especially for children, and immunization use of mosquito nets and HIV/AIDS. But this question of malnutrition in countrymen and countrywomen, in Uganda, there should be no malnutrition. There should be, our children should not suffer from any form of malnutrition, because we have everything that the body needs. The challenge, and I've talked on this matter before as well, the challenge is to educate our people. It's to educate our people. Unfortunately, we are moving in a different era because our grandmothers, I can tell you, my grandmother and my mother, they knew how to feed us. That's why we can still stand here at 75 and speak. So I don't know what's happening to the new generation. Mothers, have we forgotten really how to? Have we forgotten really what's happening? When I get the statistics on malnutrition, I feel like crying. And you know the worst districts suffering malnutrition, according to the latest figures I got, Bushenyi, the great Bushenyi. They have all the milk, they have all the matoke, they have all the vegetables. What is wrong? That really I'm asking the question. We should feel ashamed as Ugandans to hear that our children are suffering from malnutrition. Maybe, but even in Karamoja, why? Why in Karamoja? They have cattle, so they have milk. So the issue really, Minister of Health is not here, not even.
She's very much around.
Very much around. Honorable Jane, please, let's take this matter seriously. I don't have the statistics here. I will show you the danger that this country faces when we have malnutrition children. First of all, they will become a burden on society because they don't develop as complete and capable human beings. That's one. Two, they become a misery in the family. Three, they prevent the parents from actively participating in the economy because they are busy looking after those disabled children out of malnutrition. So, Honorable Minister for Health, please put me in your team. Put me in your team. We can go around this country if it needs to be educating. Members of Parliament, where are the members of Parliament? So, and no agriculture produces, agriculture has done its job. As far as on this issue is concerned, agriculture has done its job. Yes, the food is there. The problem is how to teach our mothers and our fathers what to give the children. I'm telling you, Bushenyi, I've told you, Bushenyi, I know Bushenyi very well. What is there not in Bushenyi? Is it being shown? Honorable Karo? Honorable Karo? In Bushenyi, we have all the nutrients or all the nutritious foods in many of our parts of the world. I mean, in many parts of the country. But to hear that we still have my children who are malnourished, not only are the some which are, there is a term they call wasted. The child is wasted. Please, Mama, Minister for Health, this matter. This matter. And I am ready to join you in the battle and give you money. That's not a problem. I'll give the money. Who shall give the money? Now, promotion of equity. You know, I've certainly said we don't want to develop an economy that you have those who have got, you have those who don't have. It's a very dangerous divide. It will create instability in our country. So, therefore, we need an economy. We will not be the same. As you can see, these fingers are not the same, of the same length. But you get a place where really people are really poor, and then you get people who are very rich. That's not a nice way of running things, in my view. Social protection plays a very key role in alleviating the burden of multiple deprivations of Uganda's vulnerable population. In this regard, Prioritized investments in social protection represent an important avenue to elevate the national equitable growth agenda. The most immediate actions of government will target the most vulnerable groups, regions, and those at high risk of food insecurity, social and health-related problems. The proposed strategic interventions include promoting food security, especially in high-poverty regions, through targeted investment in production of primary and fast-growing food crops. Tailor-made regional economic improvement, tailor-made regional economic empowerment initiatives for high-poverty areas, as we said, Busoga, Teso, Bukedu, Karamoja, Choli, will also be identified and pursued, drawing on the successful agri-led model implemented in the northern region. The NDP 3, which will soon be rolling out to you, we are going to change our mode of budgeting and planning. Every year, we will focus on a given region, especially now the poverty areas. We focus on those regions because the resources are not enough to go around the way we want. 1 year or 2 years, we focus on a given region and pull them up. Then another year or another 2 years, we go focus on another. Not forgetting, of course, the other regions which have already developed. But the planning now, which we are calling programmatic, is going to be based on focusing on particular regions to solve those problems of poverty. And I hope within another 5 years or so, by the time the NDP3 has come to an end, Ugandans' economic development around Ugandans will be more or less the same. Not having some regions so poor and some others, of course, we can't say that the others are so extremely rich, but we want them to come to the same base. And at least we reach to our level of the middle income status. We shall fast track implementation of universal health coverage. In particular, efforts to increase access to health insurance will also be undertaken. We shall increase investment in social protection, encompassing the expansion of the coverage of social assistance grant to the elderly, to all vulnerable elders of 80 years and above, while maintaining all those already on the scheme, irrespective of the age. 4, we shall facilitate strategic investment in areas not attractive to the private sector. Government will pursue regionally balanced, this is what I was saying about. The government will pursue regionally balanced key strategic public investment to spur private investment in key growth areas. In the past, we've been, Mr. Prime Minister, as you know, we've been emphasizing too much on private sector-led growth. Yes, we need the private sector, for sure. There's no question about that. But my experience is that private sector at times may not go to certain areas for various reasons, or may not initiate an industry for various reasons. So I'm saying government, and we want to put money in the coming budget to handle certain projects in certain areas. I'll give you an example. Now I'm struggling with the Atiaka sugar factory. Why? A good investor went and started, but in the middle of the way, she had problems. And yet, that factory is a liberating factory for our people in that part of the country. Now, I don't have the latest statistics, but I think Now I think about 16 or 15,000 acres of cane have been grown by the smallholders. Now, those smallholders, once the factory starts working, they will begin to earn money on maybe a monthly or a bi-monthly arrangement. I have another factory in Kabale, a private sector man tried, but on the way he faltered. Now, I thought that also was a liberating factory for our people in Kisoro and even Kabale. You know that area grows very many grows many sweet, Irish potatoes. A lot of Irish potatoes. And the market is incentive, not only here in Uganda, but even across our neighbors. There are two neighbors there, you know that, Rwanda and DRC Congo. So government should now deliberately move to put money, and we are doing so. That factory, I said that factory, we must help it. To do what? To survive, so that the people there. Then when the factory becomes now sustainable, we can withdraw. That gentleman can come, Mzee Mateke can see. You are listening very carefully, Mzee Mateke? You are listening very carefully. That potato factory. Yeah. Now, there is the Soroti fruit factory. No private individual wanted to go there. We have studied it. The only thing now I'm demanding from the people in Teso, please produce more oranges for me. So that the factory, because I'm told already the factory is, again, the Minister of Agriculture, I'm told the factory has no more raw materials. They have run short of raw materials. No, that's not the issue. The issue is that there are no oranges. Minister, I can tell you, because I'm very deeply involved in these things. Because those are the things that actually will help me to run this economy. So, if it is money, if it is the working capital that is a problem, Minister, we sort it out. We sort it out. There is another fruit factory in West Nile, started by a professor actually from Makerere. I'm saying that also because the professor, where does the professor get money from? No teachers are like missionaries, they're like a politicians. We don't have money. We don't have big money. Yes, we don't have, politicians, we don't have big money. No, we don't have, I can tell, unless you have done some. And some of us, we are not prone to that. It's missionary work. Missionary work. You tell me one single politician in Africa who was that a multi-billionaire? None. Unless some do like this. So we will definitely need to get a fund, Mr. Prime Minister, to invest as a government in some projects which the private sector is not ready to take on. And once the project is moving, then we will withdraw and sell the government shares to the private sector and continue. That's how we will be able to have balanced growth. Strengthening the private sector, I'm about to finish, to drive the growth. The growth and development of the private sector is vital for generation of jobs, as I've said before, increasing the revenue base and closing the gap on publicly provided services, mostly under education and health sector. The government should thus provide an enabling environment for growth of the private sector through maintaining macroeconomic stability, provision of long-term finance at affordable rates, and putting in place a conducive legal and regulatory policy framework. To further increase the capacity of the private sector financing, the government will enhance capitalization of government-owned commercial banks such as UDB and the Post Bank. In addition, the government will work to continually improve the business environment, especially the review of legal and regulatory framework to remove restrictive legislation and the fast tracking of pending business-related bills will be undertaken. And an implementation of the local content policy framework, especially to increase the participation of local firms in public investment program across all sectors. The bill is before Parliament now. Enhancing the effectiveness of fiscal and administrative governance. Fiscal governance, inefficiency in fiscal management are majorly a result of weaknesses in enforcement of public finance laws and reforms. While government prioritizes over the years, priorities over the years have been consistent with the growth and development of needs of Ugandans, the absence of fiscal discipline has hindered progress. To counteract this, the government will prioritize the following. One, the government will introduce the e-citizen program by linking all key government systems together, including the Land Information System, the NIN, and the TIN as a crucial reform for increasing revenue collection. Two, rationalization of entire government architecture to come up with a lean and efficient government. You know very well we are working on that one, Mr. Public Services here. Three, intensifying the fight against corruption to ensure that public resources are strictly utilized for the intended purpose. That one. All government institutions must implement the recently reviewed rewards and the sanctions framework. 4, programmatic planning and execution. I've talked about that already. The government will operationalize the program-based planning and program-based budgeting in line with the NDP3 programs areas in readiness for the full rollout of the reform in financial year 21-22. Improving budget implementation, including public investment management. Improving service delivery is still faced with several budget implementation challenges. In the budget of financial 2021, the one we are talking about, the government will emphasize addressing the implementation issues through the following measures. 1, strengthening capacity among ministries, departments, and agencies, especially in areas of project, contract, and logistics management. We have a problem there, big one. We are supposed to prepare projects. You, the permanent secretaries who are here, you know, we traveled to China and got some good news. And we have developed some close friendship. I sent you a letter about a month ago wanting your project proposals and feasibility studies so that we can fulfill our deed. I regret to say, Mr. Prime Minister, I have only received from 2 institutions, one from Minister of Works, another one from Uganda Investment Authority. The one of Uganda Investment Authority, they report to me, is not even very well worked out. The one which has been well worked out is the Ministry of Works and Transport. We should clap for that. Please, the rest, the stats move very fast. I think I've drafted a letter for you, Mr. Prime Minister, to tell all of us that in another 2 months, let's have completed this so that we don't look cheap. We're going to make a friendship. A friend says, please, you let me send me this, and then we concretize our friendship in terms of funding, in terms of project implementation. And here we are suffering from poverty, and people are heavily asleep, not wanting to do their job. Mr. Prime Minister, sorry, I have not come to your call here. I've come to talk about the budgeting, but I think this kind of behavior needed to be checked. Enhancing supervision and monitoring of programs by improving staffing, skilling, and facilitation. That's the real bottleneck. I see it even in my own ministry. 3, promoting public awareness of government programs and demand for accountability. Now, finally, the financing. The government will enhance the domestic revenue mobilization to reduce reliance on borrowing. We've been borrowing, but you can't borrow all the time. So we have to be very careful now, and we are very cautious. So we must really, we must now take this question of domestic revenue mobilization very seriously. We have accordingly developed what is called domestic revenue mobilization strategy, which is a result of a long period of collaborative working from a wide range of government institutions, our development partners, as well as civil society and the Ugandan business community. The strategy aims to raise the ratio of revenue to GDP from 15.5% in financial 18-19 to between 18-20% over the next 5 years, bringing Uganda closer to its revenue potential. Over the next financial year, the government will undertake strategic actions covering various aspects of tax policy and tax administration. Tax policy initiative, development of evidence-based tax expenditure governance framework to limit leakages and improve transparency. The framework will be published annually as a part of the budget documentation and will be used to reassess the fiscal cost and the benefits of well existing tax incentives, exemptions, and holidays. Two, introduction of measures to encourage formalization and informal businesses, as well as enhancement of compliance to regulatory frameworks and tax laws. Three, streamlining tax policy and the tax laws to enhance clarity, compliance, and minimizing unnecessary disputes between taxpayers and the tax authorities. In addition, the government will, where necessary, propose adjustment to tax rates with a view to widening the tax base. 4, the review of the CET will be completed with the aim of enhancing the protection of the East African community manufacturers by using relevant trade defense measures, safeguard measures, anti-dumping measures, and countervailing measures. Let me repeat. The review of the CET will be completed with the aim of enhancing the protection of the East African manufacturers by using the relevant trade defense measures. 5, enhancing non-tax revenue through the review of the relevancy and appropriateness of the rates currently charged and propose any necessary adjustment to ensure that the rates are commensurate to the services offered by government. And 6, the government will work with the local governments to strengthen their revenue base and to broaden the range of revenue instruments available to them to improve local government financing. I think local government will need to sit down together because we can't continue all the time feeding you from the center. Yes. Well, I really I would like that we work a system that will enable you to collect local taxes and taxes that you will keep and run your program, rather than depending much of the time on the center. I disagree with that kind of arrangement myself. Tax administration, in addition to the above policy measures, the government will enhance tax administration and compliance. This will be achieved, among others, through lifting the human resource capacity at URA, improving ICT capacities and data access, expanding the taxpayer register to ensure accuracy of information, creating a predictable and consistent tax system, and most importantly, tackling corruption within the tax authority. State of the economy. Now I'm about finishing state of the economy and the growth prospects. Before I conclude, I want to restate that Uganda's economy has recovered from the low growth average rate of 3.9% experienced in financial 16-17 to an average of over 6% over the last 2 financial years. The recovery in growth is majorly attributed to the recovery in global economic and domestic factors, such as the rise in demand, recovery in private sector as reflected by the growth in private sector credit, among others. The policies and intervention that the government is currently implementing in financial year 1920 are expected to translate into an economic growth rate of 6.3%. And this will continue in financial year 2021. Based on Uganda's productive capacities and the medium-term third national development plan agenda that government will undertake, the economy is expected to grow at an average of 4 or 6.4 in the medium term. We can even do better. We can do better if those constraints and bottlenecks that I've talked about are addressed. In conclusion, what I have outlined in our strategic focus for medium term, starting with financial 2021, is to sustain and accelerate inclusive economic growth. And I repeat this, to sustain and accelerate inclusive economic growth. The budget for fiscal year 2021 and the medium term will focus on increasing productivity in the 4 areas critical for job creation and exports. That is to say, agriculture and agro-industrialization. 2, the tourism development. Tourism is our cash cow, and we don't need a lot of money to invest in that sector. There are a few things that we need to put in place. Once we have kept our security and peace, it is very easy to manage. 3, improving value addition to tradable minerals and commodities. And 4, enhancing efficiency in public investments in provision of maintenance of productive and trade infrastructure, provision of health and services, and skill development. Maybe let me emphasize this. Efficiency in the manner in which we execute our work. Efficiency in the manner in which we execute our work. I have a case, Mr. Prime Minister, where the President ordered us, sent us the directive, 2017, to handle a very highly profitable project, cashew nuts. The studies have been done. The profitability is fantastic. But I may be accusing myself, maybe let me accuse myself. This project is moving at a snail's speed. Not with the politicians, no. Down, please, the technical officers. They are busy, the feasibility study is not well done. If it is not well done, why don't you well do it? Do it well. Well do it. To sit on a project for 3 years and we have not moved? I was telling people yesterday, if you have very strong views, yes, come up. If you have a strong, I was telling my staff yesterday, if you have a strong view on a proposal, come up. In black and white. Minister, we can't proceed like this, because of this, of this, of this. But to keep quiet until some clever post younger person comes and says, by the way, Minister, do you see this letter was sent to you 3 years ago and nothing has moved? Mr. Prime Minister, sir, with all due respect, you would have to whip us. We have to be whipped. Any officer who does that kind of thing, in my view, is not worth really serving this nation. He can go in his private business, but I can tell you, In a private business, if because me I'm a private sector man, me I'm not a public office. I would never worked in the government, not even a single day except to teach for 9 months. I taught in a public school for 9 months. I've never worked in a private public sector, never. If you behave like that in business, you will be dead. Because in business, we say time is money. A decision which was supposed to be made, now you don't make it, tomorrow the business is gone. So even if you are proving to be a failure in public service by delaying decisions, you will also be a failure in private. So I don't know where next we shall find you. So please, let us ensure that we timely deliver things which must be delivered. If there is a bottleneck, if there is a query, if there is a problem, come up and tell us, and we jointly sit down and work about that problem. If the problem is unsolvable, then we tell the whole country that that problem is unsolvable, nobody can manage anymore. But to sit on a project, to sit on a directive, particularly from the president, and you have not moved because you are trying many this, legal what. If they are legal, let's go to Parliament. We are there. We shall go to Parliament and present amendment, the bill. We are ministers here. We shall go to cabinet. The process, we know it. But to sit, because that cashew nut, you are, Mr. Prime Minister, that cashew nut project is another liberating project, particularly along our cut corridor. And someone went and sat on it for 3 solid years. Anyway, I didn't come to quarrel. This proposed strategy is intended to kickstart budget consultation for financial 2021. It will be further discussed at subsequent budget consultations with the local governments and other relevant stakeholders. The sector ministries should discuss these proposals in their respective sector working groups and come up with actionable areas and the crucial priorities that are well sequenced within their strategic plans and budgets. With these so many words, Mr. Prime Minister, sir, representing His Excellency the President, colleagues, ministers, your ambassadors, your excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, including our technical officials, I want to end my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndugu Matia Kasaija, for a very powerful presentation of the budget strategy for the coming year. The minister has been powerful, convincing. He deserves another clap. Now it's my pleasure to call on the chairperson of the Local Development Partners Group to come forward and make his statement. A much warmer welcome to him.
Right Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Members of Parliament, representatives of civil society organisations and the private sector, members of the diplomatic community, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Local Development Partners Group, I would like to thank you, Right Honourable Prime Minister, for inviting us today to the National Budget Conference for the fiscal year 2020-2021. This is an important event which will set the tone for key policy and spending discussions over the best part of the next year. We as development partners will use this opportunity to identify and discuss ways of strengthening our partnership and our coordination to support you in sustaining and accelerating development outcomes in Uganda. Once again, the Budget Conference follows a successful Economic Growth Forum in late August that was structured around accelerating economic growth for shared prosperity. This is very similar to the theme of the FY2021 budget strategy of industrialisation for job creation and shared prosperity. We're particularly pleased that jobs is featured more prominently, as job creation is arguably the most pressing challenge in the country today. We do also look forward to seeing how the proposals from the Growth Forum are taken forward in the next budget. When considering the broad challenges and opportunities this budget confronts, I will highlight 5 issues today that development partners believe are important to keep in mind. First, recent economic growth has not been sufficient or inclusive and is not creating the level of jobs required. Uganda continues to maintain macroeconomic stability in the face of uncertainty in the global economy, low levels of inflation, a stable balance of payments position, a broadly stable foreign exchange rate, and adequate foreign exchange reserves. This stability, alongside a range of other factors including good weather, has maintained growth levels of over 6% in the last 2 years, and the growth outlook is very positive for the medium term. This is good. However, Uganda has one of the world's highest population growth rates, with almost half of its people under the age of 15. As a result, once population growth is accounted for, the economy's average annual per capita growth is significantly reduced. According to the latest household survey from 2016-17, between 2012 and 2016, the poverty rate also increased to 21.4%, an increase that resulted in about 1.4 million Ugandans slipping back into poverty. Uganda also needs to generate about 600,000 new wage jobs per year to cater for the young people leaving the education system. This isn't being met, as noted in the budget strategy. Only about 75,000 new wage jobs are being created each year. Raising the quality as well as the rate of growth will be critical to ensure that the economy is better placed to support the aspirations of all Ugandans. The theme of this year's budget strategy on industrialisation for job creation and shared prosperity is therefore welcome. Although it makes sense for Uganda to primarily look to achieve this through agro-industrialisation, we should not lose sight of the many preconditions for industrialisation that are still poorly developed. At the level of agro-production and productivity, including service delivery to farmers, there are still enormous gaps which need to be narrowed if raw materials are to be made available to agro-industry. Instead of just focusing on agro-industrialisation, we need to equally consider elements of the full value chain, from the farm to processing and then marketing and trade. Second, the next budget needs to be better anchored around the NDP3's medium-term growth and development objectives. We commend the government for the work it has done in reviewing the performance of NDP2 and preparing NDP3. While there has been an improvement in alignment of the budget to the NDPs, concerns remain in several areas that need to be addressed. Some have also been identified in the latest compliance report of the National Planning Authority. Although human capital development is again a priority intervention in the 2021 budget strategy, Uganda has been allocating a declining share of its budget to social sectors, despite a growing youthful population, and much lower than the average for East African countries. As a result, the earlier progress on human development, which the Honourable Minister referred to earlier, is showing signs of stagnation and, if continued, may cause a reversal of some of this progress. We development partners make a significant contribution to these sectors, but we cannot substitute for government leadership and resources. Thus, we would like to have a constructive dialogue on shifting the way we work together in these critical areas and therefore maximise the sustainability of our support. Although work has been done to strengthen public investment management, much still needs to happen to ensure the heavy investment in infrastructure delivers the maximum possible impact for growth and poverty. New projects that were not in NDP2 continue to be developed without a clear understanding as whether the right choices are being made. In terms of implementation, challenges in land acquisition continue to slow project implementation and lead to cost overruns. Allocating financing to projects that are not ready has crowded out implementation of NDP2 ready projects and pressing needs in other sectors. And several expired projects are still in the public investment plan, thus holding resources that could be used for other priorities. During the 13th and 14th Joint Transport Sector Review Workshops, it was agreed that budget allocations for road maintenance would rise to 24% of the roads budget in FY2020. However, based on the budget allocations for FY2020, this was not the case. Road development still takes the biggest share of the budget at 90%, with road maintenance only allocated 7%. As a result, current road maintenance financing can only meet about 26% of the needs, leaving a big chunk of the road network unattended to. This represents a precarious situation for the sustainability of the road's asset base if it cannot be maintained adequately. Over the medium term, the proportion of roads in fair to good condition will decrease, while those in poor condition will increase. At the same time, the backlog of maintenance is growing and will result in higher replacement costs of the road assets in future. Government needs to quickly find a more effective way of mobilising financing for road maintenance. For years, operational and investment funding for local government stagnated, undermining the availability of funding for local governments to invest in and run basic services. We welcome the successive increases in the 1819 and 1920 budgets for development, and most significantly, operational funding for health and education services. We look forward to the continuation of these increases over the medium term to restore the adequacy of funding for those services. We also encourage government to increase funding for other local government services such as water, agriculture and rural roads alongside education and health. We're impressed by the improvements in institutional performance of local governments under the annual performance assessment in the context of the fiscal transfer reforms. It's now important that reforms are deepened to impact on service delivery, and we welcome plans to introduce performance incentives for health facilities and schools and to support poor performance. We also welcome the inclusion of refugees in NDP3, sector and district development plans, which will further align humanitarian and development interventions with the district plans. Third, resourcing a budget which can deliver growth and manage debt vulnerabilities does require boosting domestic resource mobilisation efforts. At 14.7% of GDP in FY18-19, tax revenues exceeded the target of 14.2%. This was also in line with government's ambition of annual revenue increases of 0.5% of GDP from new administrative and tax policy reforms. However, much of this increase is due to extracting more revenues from a limited tax base. So efforts need to be made to expand this base. This includes incentivising medium and small enterprises to enter the formal market, which may involve a strategy of not taxing them initially and instead taxing them progressively as they grow. Also, as discussed at the Economic Growth Forum, government needs to quickly establish a framework to help manage tax exemptions. These exemptions narrow the base and drain the system of revenues foregone, and will make it harder for government to continue achieving its revenue ambitions. Estimates suggest that the revenue foregone across all tax sources due to tax exemptions were in the range of 4.5% to 5% of GDP in FY16-17. Discussions at the Growth Forum also identified very little evidence that these exemptions encourage greater investment, with investment decisions being made on more tangible issues related to the business environment, for example, the availability of appropriate skills. Such a framework to manage exemptions would include rules to assess their efficiency, impact and equity, and to remove them if warranted. Furthermore, developing the private sector and encouraging both domestic and foreign investment needs a more multi-sectoral approach and clear institutional alignment. It will also require a better understanding of investor incentives. Fourth, although Uganda remains at low risk of debt distress, according to World Bank and IMF debt sustainability assessments, under current policies and expected economic conditions, debt vulnerabilities are significant and increasing. We welcome the commitment by government to keep debt at safe levels. However, if all projects currently included in the investment pipeline were fully implemented on time, remaining below prudent thresholds would be challenging. In addition, any unexpected downturn in GDP growth or increased reliance on non-concessional commercial borrowing would create additional vulnerabilities. The recent delays to a final investment decision in the oil sector are also concerning, given that the heavy borrowing for oil sector-related infrastructure is relying on enhanced payment capacity from oil exports, which looks set to be deferred. Total debt service, interest and principal due, is also expected to average around 41.5% of government revenue over the next 6 years, until oil revenues ensue. Apart from prudent borrowing, this also highlights the significance of raising tax revenues, reducing tax exemptions, and limiting the procurement and implementation delays of particularly debt-financed projects. Maintaining public debt on a sustainable path will require strengthening the budget process to ensure that budget targets become more binding, that public spending and public debt management become more effective, including maximising concessional borrowing, and that fiscal risks are comprehensively monitored. Finally, development partners are committed to engage more closely with you in the preparation of the FY2021 budget. This engagement with government used to be much stronger when several partners were providing budget support, and there was richer and more structured dialogue around policy and spending choices. Given that the budget is the most important means to prioritise and deliver development outcomes in Uganda, we would like to start bringing those levels of dialogue in the preparation of this budget. From our side, this will include providing comprehensive and timely information on ongoing and proposed donor support, and engaging closely in the preparation of both the sectoral and the national budget framework papers. Right Honourable Prime Minister, let me conclude by once again thanking you on behalf of all the local development partners for inviting us to participate in this important conference. We wish you successful deliberations in designing a budget which supports job creation and prosperity, and look forward to discussions on how we, the development partners, can best engage to support sustainable, inclusive growth in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we obviously salute the development partners for being reliable partners in our struggle to transform the country. So they deserve a clap for that partnership. Can I now request the chairperson of the Uganda Local Governments Association to make his statement.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Prime Minister and the Chair of the session, the Minister for Finance and Economic Planning, Cabinet Ministers that are available here, Members of Parliament, Head of Public Service and Secretary to Cabinet, Your Excellencies, the Ambassadors and Heads of Diplomatic Missions, the Permanent Secretaries, Senior Officers of ministries and other government agencies, the district chairpersons, the district resident commissioners, Your Worship the mayors, and other chief administrative officers, town clerks, ladies and gentlemen, in your respective capacities. Chair, before I commence my statement, I would like to request that members of local government raise up, first of all, for recognition, but I'm actually going to deliver their statement. So it's not my statement, their statement. So you should know, even in terms of numbers. So can I request all those coming from districts to raise up? Chair, thank you so much. Chair, it's that mandate that I'm actually representing. We are almost half the whole participation. I salute you, Honourable Minister, in the name and on behalf of the President of ULGA, Uganda Local Governments Association, and the entire ULGA fraternity. as we local governments continue to be grateful to the central government, and for the purposes of today, the Minister of Finance, for the space and opportunity given to us to share our views and contribute to the national policy and decision-making process. WULGA is grateful to the central government and cabinet in particular for the wise decision to establish local government sector as a local government. As local government, this gesture gives us the reassurance that central government remains committed to decentralization policy. And as such, we equally commit to provide our stewardship at the local level and ensure that realization of the objectives of this policy in accordance with the principles laid down under Chapter 11 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Our chief guests and the Minister of Finance, as we launch the National Budget Strategy for 2020-2021, we thank you, Minister of Finance, for your response towards our letter, the letter from the President to you. We thank you very much, which was going to affect our participation in this meeting. And this was very critical, even as we continue to pursue with your office our request for a platform of engagement on these matters. Allow me to reiterate some of these issues for the benefit of other stakeholders, because we think they are critical and they should be known by others. We, the local government leaders and our technical heads, have expressed our concerns over the increasing unfavorable operating environment that is resulting from the ongoing physical reforms that constrain our capacity to perform as constitutionally mandated. Not only do we witness the increasing reduction in the national budget allocation to local government service delivery, but the new trend to usurp the discretion of local governments with regard to management of its local revenue and the current absurd and unexplained budget distortion are indeed matters that are critical that cannot continue to be put to disregard. Mr. Chairman, the second point that we raised in our communication with the Minister, we have also observed with concern that key planning guide that is meant to define the budgeting and planning framework for 2020-2021, which is the National Development Plan 3, continue to be work in progress, and gathering from the opportunity that we have received to make contributions to its drafting process, we are convinced that the true and final copy can only be ready for effective use early next year. As rightly stated, Honourable Minister of Finance, given that the 2020-2021 is the first fiscal year for implementation of NDP 3, and the budget strategy will be anchored on the NDP 3 medium-term growth and development objectives, our question remains as to how local government planning for service delivery can be based on a tentative framework that will most definitely present implementation challenges along the way, drawing us back into the experiences of NDP 2 implementation. Why not wait until we are ready with the right usable document? We have a puzzle around there, Chair. Having stated the above, I'll proceed to share the WULGA responses to the proposals laid out in the National Budget Strategy 2020-2021. As shared in the budget strategy, we appreciate the objectives of the medium-term growth agenda set out to address the existing challenges to growth and further build on the development milestones achieved so far, which include ensuring that there is in place efficient and sustainable exploitation of growth opportunities, consolidating and increasing the stock and quality of productive and urban infrastructure to support trade, industrialization, and export agenda, increasing productivity, inclusive and well-being of the population by placing emphasis on improving access and quality of social services, strengthening the private sector to drive growth, and enhancing effectiveness and efficiency of both fiscal and administrative governance. Here we really agree, and we commend you on this. In the same vein, we acknowledge and appreciate and the identified priorities interventions for 2020-2021, which incidentally not only resonate with the sixth pillar of decentralization, which is local economic development, but also will require the vital and critical contribution of local government institutions as key vehicles from the national policy and programs implementation and service delivery to the people of Uganda. Local governments have been identified by global agenda, and more particularly Agenda 2030, anchored on sustainable development goals as critical partners and centers of growth and development. Fellow delegates, we, the local leaders, are ready and committed to drive the local economic agenda in order to establish sustainable local economies capable of generating the much-needed funding and revenues for service delivery. The commitment of local governments is amplified in the ULGA/Operation Wealth Creation Memorandum of Understanding, which we call upon the central government to extend its total support and to facilitate its immediate implementation and enforcement. Our guest of honor, the strategy goes ahead to pronounce its funding sources by making references to the implementation of domestic revenue mobilization strategy that is to be used as a tool for mobilizing the required resources for financing the strategy. Local governments, in equal measures, run economies that are part of the bigger picture, and planning process needs to be properly positioned. These institutions for proper benefit and efficient contribution. Our quick recommendation at this point is that ULGA requests central government to provide local government with interventions around having in place the right policies, bylaws and ordinances that promote local revenue enhancement and tax collection, skills and expertise generation in the areas of planning and overall management of tax administration. In addition, fellow delegates, ULGA condemns any attempt to remove the tax collection powers of local governments, but instead welcomes innovations around central government assisting local government to collect through technical backstopping, mentoring, and training of personnel, as well as system improvement. Honorable Minister of Finance, I was excited when I heard of your uncomfort that local governments are relying on central government. And all my colleagues were saying, is it true? Then if it is true, then why should we be seeing some of these recentralization policies that are coming on board that disempowers us? So I was really excited of your new position, and my colleagues are going to clap for you. To do otherwise is to go against the entire backdrop of general principles of decentralization, good local governance. Investment in ventures that help local government generate additional alternative revenue and income are welcome and will receive total support of local government. This I must ensure you. Honorable Minister and delegates, to this conference, bearing in mind a look at local government institutions in Uganda today reveals that we need to do a lot more if we are to have them efficiently and effectively carry out their mandate in support of the budget strategy and implementation of NDP 3 as laid out. For some time now, WULGA continues to invest heavily in engaging central government on the following critical areas of concern, which I can reiterate on below. 1, improving coordination at national level and local government level. And 2, strengthening the improvement of the enabling environment. And then 3, defining appropriate change-driven implementation strategy. The critical issue affecting local government here, local government service delivery, are weakened and almost absolute policy of decentralization, lack of proper coordination of service delivery, weak institutions, and inadequate resourcing affecting program implementation.
Chair, I deliberately slowed the speed for purposes of allowing you to internalize this particular issue. Because for us,
it is very, very critical. Our presentation, therefore, continue to anchor its concerns in the same, given that there is little to show in terms of progress in this direction. Key recommendations. Our key recommendation as WULGA is that for the financial year 2020-2021, we request central government to invest in instituting a national level and countrywide review and consultations geared towards strengthening decentralization, with the purpose of repositioning local governments to be able to deliver on their constitutional mandate. All attempts to limit and devolved local government powers must be stopped.
Chair, this is something that we actually request, and this is not the first time we are requesting it. We must know which decentralization policy are we implementing in Uganda. As far as we are concerned, the decentralization that we used to implement, that was presented, against which all these development agendas are anchored, is no longer the decentralization in place. It is now the other way around. Honourable Minister, I don't know whether you are aware, as the planner of this country, that the centralization that we actually launched and that we are basing all our strategies to uplift and ensure that we deliver our population is not that one. There is something totally different. And we want a total review on this so that we can position ourselves correctly. Thank you so much. In line with the above, we also request the ministry to commit to invest in activities that seek to have influence, to influence legal and policy regimes to be updated and aligned with the principles of devolution for proper governance and improved service delivery implementation, starting with the Public Finance Management Act 2015. WULGA looks forward to seeing our ministry issue out certificate of compliance to decentralization policy before any law is passed by Parliament. This is the only way, Honourable Minister, Honourable Prime Minister, that we can guarantee. Because we've seen so many policies that have been enacted that are actually in total contradiction with the decentralization policy, which we think is our vehicle to deliver our country to prosperity. To date, we continue to have in place laws and policies that curtail the discretion of local governments, in addition to increasing tendencies by ministries to pass policies and Parliament to enact laws, continue to contradict the policy and the spirit of decentralization. Examples of this can be found in the obsolete laws and regulations that affect funding and revenue generation by the local governments, like the outdated Royalty Act that all of you must be familiar to. 3, in response to funding, we address ourselves to the implementation of the intergovernment fiscal transfer reforms under fiscal decentralization. As WULGA, we would like to see central government in the coming years seriously invest in addressing the fiscal reforms challenges that affect implementation at policy levels. For starters, WULGA recommends that the Ministry of Finance, working with the local government finance commission, addresses itself on the matters of compliance to the 7th schedule of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, which provides for a clear funding allocation formula that has long been abandoned, either deliberately or out of omission. This has been abandoned, which is a violation of Constitution, of our own Constitution. It is this distortion that have resulted in the current struggle for funding for local service delivery. Secondly, WULGA requests the Ministry of Finance and the Local Government Finance Commission to equally prioritize investment in making a close follow-up on the outgoing fiscal decentralization reforms that have brought forth the district development grants, which has resulted into a complete absorption of unconditional grants that provide for local government discretion in determining the priority service investment areas for development. This presents a huge problem when it comes to downward accountability of service delivery to citizens. In particular, WULGA calls for national level review and evaluation reforms on ensuring the wholesome, transparent, and systematic implementation of the recommendations of the Fiscal Decentralization Architecture Review report, as opposed to the current approach of piecemeal administration adopted by the Ministry of Finance, and which we believe only seek to benefit the interests of public finance management reforms that continue to be unfavorable for decentralization to thrive. Number 4, further to the above, we would like to seek to see our ministerial policy reflecting efforts towards championing advocacy for an allocation of at least 38 to 40% of the national budget from the current one that you already, Honourable Minister, just for purposes of information, 2017-2018, we had about 12.9% allocation to local governments. And as of now, 2019-20, I think around 9.8%. We are not so sure about 2020-2021. We may go to 7%, who knows? We are worried about the trend. There must be, accompanied with deliberate investment in developing a separate law to establish a minimum share of local governments to the national budget, to shield the local government's share from unforeseen and unagreed deductions, and also address the continuous decline in real value of funds transferred to local governments. The local governments strongly recommend and demand that the funds retained by the sector ministries for programs meant to be implemented by local governments be directly transferred by the ministries to the local governments. In fact, yes, thank you. In fact, we request the ministry to release the total of 1.6 trillion shillings that has been identified as being retained under the different sectors under the financial year 2019-2020 national budget. These include, under agriculture, we have 12 261.4 billion. Under education, we have 257.2 billion. Under health, we have 217 billion. Under water, we have 196.4 billion. Under works, we have 96.1 billion. Under social development, we have 76.1 billion. This is money that is retained at the center for us. That we don't have capacity to spend them, the money, and that there is doubt whether we can be able to effectively utilize this money or even absorb. We suggest that then invest in building our capacity, because it's still your mandate on our minister, so that we can be able to actually make sure that we reach the people as fast as possible. Because reaching a sub-county in Bulamaji, in Iganga, from a Ministry of Agriculture in Entebbe, it is easier from Iganga to Bulamaji than from the ministry to Bulamaji, to the sub-county. Number 5, local economic development. There is need to have a clear policy coordination center for lead, and therefore we strongly recommend our Ministry of Local Government as a substantive sector in itself is empowered to drive this agenda. What we need in place is a functional and well-supported local economic development policy, which is capable of driving investments that will contribute the national budget 2020-2021. Local government lack the access to capital investments. Like, we wonder what role the entities of Uganda Development Corporation, entities of Uganda Cotton Development Agency, entities like Dairy Corporation, and the rest is. These agencies have failed to be decentralized and work with the local institutions, thereby locking out and denying our people access to the much needed capital investment financing to trigger growth and development at local levels. ULGA equally recommend for investment in capacity building and skills enhancement programs for local governments to enable them able to handle such investments and projects. Just like you commenting about the capacity of your own officers to develop feasibility studies and projects, of course you can imagine what's happening down there. So as you look at investing in capacities upwards, we also need the same capacity built at lower local levels. The key areas for consideration include support to development of bankable proposals, as well as investment profiling and marketing strategy developments. This capacity building and skills training must also be guided by having local government civil service structure positioning to reflect the local economic development aspirations, by allowing local government to recruit the required staff to efficiently manage programs, program implementation and self-delivery at that level. Number 6, it is important that local governments are mobilized into regional structures and consortiums, are uniquely structured around their economic production, productive strengths, alongside key vehicles and infrastructure for investment, shall be established in form of industrial parks as well as logistical hubs. This approach shall promote economic and industrial transformation through improved coordination and value addition production. We have tested this approach as local governments, and we have forums like Great Masaka Consortium, Busoga Regional Consortium, the upcoming Western Regional Development Forum, the North Regional Development Forum, and others in the offing like Lake Victoria Consortium and Loyal Triangle Consortium. ULGA pays special tribute to the local government's Finance Commission and the Chief Coordinator of Operation Wealth Creation for providing the stewardship in this direction at the national level by developing and enabling the launch of agro-led project for Rwenzori sub-region. We thank you and urge the ministry to generously guide and lead us into this realization, into the realization of its objectives. Number 7, in financial year 2017, Cabinet approved new structure, new staff structures for implementation by the ministry, departments and agencies and local governments. However, to date, the implementation remain partial. We also note that a number of the approved structures are yet to be uploaded for use of the integrated personnel and payroll system, the IPPS, which limit the capacity of local governments to undertake recruitment. ULGA therefore recommends that the ministries of public service should upload all the approved structures on the IPPS for the project, for the budget process of year 2020-2021. The Ministry of Public Service should also guide the local governments on the separation and implementation modalities for commercial departments. And on the other hand, the Ministry of Finance ensure its separation from the production and marketing departments as separate independent entities in the program budgeting system. Number 9, in addition to being limited to 65% staffing structures, the local governments today can only recruit and fill positions on authority of Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, which provide and manage the wage bill budget. It is only when the PPST accepts to provide the wage bill will the local government be able to recruit staff. ULGA calls upon and requests government to cause a review on this outrageous requirement for purposes of empowering local governments to fulfill their given responsibility, devoid of the undue constraint from the center. With the average staffing of 54% and in some places 46% for districts and municipalities respectively, a lot is left desiring to ensure optimum service delivery for local governments. Indeed, it is our strong recommendation, therefore, that government focuses resources towards recruitment of local government staff to 100% if we want 100% results. In addition to the above, we also note that much efforts is being put on empowering local government with appropriate skills and resources to manage the different programs being implemented in local governments. There is inadequate provision for inducting and skilling local government staff, both political and technical personnel, through continuous refresher courses and programs. The Civil Service College needed to be strengthened and effectively utilized to deliver on the requirement with a specific curriculum tailored to address local government interests. However, ULGA hastens to recommend for a special local government training institute in the immediate future, which benefit specifically tasked to skill particular skills for local government services. As I wind up, it is ULGA's additional recommendation that in order to enhance ownership, coordination, and sustainability of all government programs, a proper review of local government structuring process is undertaken to ensure that all government programs are consolidated and provided for under a clearly defined leadership under the office of the district chairperson and defined by as defined by decentralization policy. And Article 183 of our Constitution to avoid duplication, bureaucracy, and lack of accountability. It is also imperative that central government invest in strengthening the supervision and the oversight function at local government level. It is WULGA's strong recommendation that central government immediately undertakes a review of the current provisions for supervision and mentoring and monitoring implementation of public programs at local level, which include provision of allowing the district political leaders to be adequately facilitated to exercise their constitutional mandate. Investment in this area holds a premise of addressing key challenges by registering improvement in areas of teachers, health service providers, attendance, proper provision of extension services, effective distribution of utilization of health drugs, as well as agriculture inputs mentioned, to mention but a few. Our projected financial implication for purposes of improving the welfare and remuneration of district political leaders is a modest total requirement of 483 billion, which we have overweighted for its arrival. Nonetheless, WULGA appreciates government commitment to improve the welfare of the local leaders, and we applaud the Minister of Public Service for the current efforts indicated in the increments given so far. Mr. Minister, we have already talked about this for some time, that if you want us to do what we are supposed to do, we need to be effectively facilitated. Mr. Minister, you are aware that a chief administrative officer and the chairperson has a take-home net of 1.75. You can imagine what is expected of us. And you can imagine how these local leaders sustain your government. Without them, our government. Sometimes I forget whether I'm part of the central one or the local one. You know we are local, so you bear with me. With respect to the local government civil service, WULGA commits its request to the ministry to look into improving the remuneration of the chief administrative officers, the local government accounting officers. These officers remain critical and must be equally motivated to be able to deliver our expectations. Chief administrative officers are in charge of critical functions of government, are responsible for the biggest number of employees in this government, but above all, are responsible for and in charge of enormous financial resources of government and development partners. A proposal was submitted to you for a proposed revision of Uganda shillings of at least 13.5 million for the district accounting officers. And this is not asking for too much if we actually want effective service delivery. The legislative function of local governments that support the policy development and implementation process of local government remain weak and untapped to support local translations into international commitments, and therefore poor coordination between government, the central government and local governments. It is our recommendation that government invest in ensuring the functionality of councils as legislative and policy-making body. The relevant legislative skills and resource requirements must be put in place. Councils require a professional, dedicated clerk to council with a legal professional background of a postgraduate diploma level and legal practice, who will strongly recommend, and we strongly recommend, these can equally save the local governments from the different legal challenges and provide legal advice to backstop the office of the chief administrative officers. Another recommendation, with regard to cities and urban centers that we have always presented for approval, we think we equally need a wholesome awareness campaign on the urbanization that is not aligned to the structured divide between rural and urban, but is instead anchored in the fact that not only is urbanization a global trend, and that eventually transformation of our country drives towards developing from rural status to urbanized centers of production and livelihood. All local governments and urban centers must therefore equally be brought on board when it comes to activities of addressing urban development matters. Uluga further recommends to central government to put in place a well-structured and technically informed criteria to support and guide the process of creation of administrative units. This is something that we have grappled with, and we think it's time now that we need to have a properly studied process of how we can be able to come up with administrative units that are going to be supported eventually by the Ministry of Finance. Support to Uluga and Uganda Urban Authority, Uganda Local Government Authority has, against all odds, since 1996, continued to make its contribution to support and enabling guide interventions by government in realizing the constitutional provisions under Chapter 11 of our Constitution. This fact positioned the organization as a relevant and key development partner of government that is useful and critical for organizing local governments and mobilizing them to actively participate, engage, and ensure that proper implementation of government and national priority programs. We extend our appreciation to government for positively responding to our requests for a subvention to local government association, Uluga and Uganda Urban Authorities Association, for a modest of 3 billion. We are happy to note that already our permanent secretary has communicated to the Minister of Finance on this matter. We thank you and we hope for the best. It is therefore our recommendation and request to Minister of Finance that, given the communication already issued by the ministry indicating the need to provide for this request, we request further that it forms part of the budget for 2020-2021. In conclusion, our guest of honor, as I conclude, allow me to share on behalf of local governments the current prevailing circumstances reveal that at the policy and legislative level, central government is no longer compliant with the national and direct principles of state policy, Democratic Principles 3, and Chapter 11 of the local governments of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. I mentioned this already, and I want to emphasize it. The local governments are strongly rejecting any proposed investment in this direction, as our message to Cabinet is to reject any such paper coming from sector ministries that seek to re-centralize local government staff and the corresponding mandate. The local governments do boldly argue that the decentralization has been hijacked, and the proponents for this seek to cripple central government by branding it as a failure, reflecting it in the current quality of services being delivered. We therefore look forward to a candid discussion with the central government on the important issues raised by local governments. And in this submission, and to the new era of development partnership, and recognizes the actors of local governments as stakeholders with equal interests in the growth and development of this country. guest of honor, as I wind up, I want to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be part of this process. And it is our hope that our discussions and our issues are taken serious, because we are really a serious lot, because we are actually helping the biggest population of this country. There is no reason why, when we make these recommendations and say we want a critical engagement with you and with your ministry, we mean it. We want to critically engage with you so that we can be able to bring out these issues, and you also convince us that your plans will deliver this country even without the issues that we will have brought. We will definitely be convinced that we can continue that way. We want you to take us very, very serious, and our issues very, very, very serious. Thank you so much for listening to me, for God and my country. Kayemba Patrick, and my name's, I'm the Vice President, Wulga Eastern Region, but also the chairperson of Iganga District Local Government in the Eastern Uganda. God bless you.
Well, thank you very much, the Uruga chief, for a very articulate and really powerful case again presented. It is true that the issues raised are significant, and the central government is definitely not only listening, but will provide a more deliberate effort or even fora to discuss these matters so that consensus can be reached on these critical points. We do realize, without any doubt, that local governments and local government leaders are the commanders of service delivery to the wananchi. And there is no way how the central government cannot give you as much support as possible, because you need that support in order to ensure that there is delivery of services to the wananchi. I think we have had quite a long session and very good presentations. We need to internalize them, chew over them, over both tea and lunch. And I think before we break off for both tea and lunch, we should ask the Secretariat to come and give us the necessary guidance on how we are going to proceed. Maurice, the floor is yours.
Our chief guest and chair of this session, thank you very much. I wanted to take you through a couple of administration issues we will be managing during lunch and immediately after lunch. First is a quick reminder that our session after lunch will be chaired by Honorable Mary Karoro Krut, and the panelists, you know yourselves, we will be here and start immediately at 2 p.m. The panel includes some cabinet ministers, but it also has some heads of our government agencies and a private sector representative, someone from the small and medium enterprises group, and also civil society. So we want and we are requesting our panelists to be here by 2 p.m. for us to begin that session in the afternoon. I also, Right Honorable Prime Minister, wanted in a very special way to recognize the presence of our ministers who have been here since the beginning. We've been told the others will be joining us this afternoon. We want to thank you, Honorable Ministers, for joining us this afternoon and morning. I also wanted to mention our chief guest that I had missed earlier, the head of public service, John Mitala, who's also here with us. And we want to recognize you, sir, for being here. Thank you so much. I also want to recognize, after the local government chairpersons had been recognized by the vice chair here, or the vice president, we also have our RDCs represented here, and the chief administrative officers who are also invited and have attended this conference. I also, in a very special way, wanted Your Excellency to recognize our private sector members who are here, led by the Private Sector Foundation. We want to thank you all for joining us for this conference. Now, the way we had arranged for our break and lunch was a bit different, and for some of you, as you walk out, if you wanted to pick your coffee before the lunch, that's also fine with us, because the coffee is still there. However, we will serve lunch by the gardens in the tent for the rest of us, but for the following category of people, lunch is served in Katonga Hall, and I'm requesting that our protocol teams will manage these people as they depart to join us in Katonga Hall. Lunch in Katonga will be served for all the ministers and state ministers present, all the permanent secretaries who are here. We'll also have, of course, the head of public service and the secretary to the cabinet. We also have the Commissioner General of Prisons who will be joining the team in Katonga, but also the Clerk to Parliament who is also here, that will be joining that team. The protocol team will, as advised later, decide on who else will join the team in Katonga Hall. But for now, that's the list I have been given. The rest of us will go to our garden where a fantastic tent has been prepared for us to have our lunch. However, coffee is available. Just as you walk out, you'll see the coffee in the parking. If you're on your way to the gardens and want to pick your coffee, that's good with us. That's also fine. And you're welcome to coffee. Our chief guest, yes, just a minute. I have been reminded by our hosts, our chief guest, that our diplomats, heads of mission, lunch is also in Katonga. I had skipped it on my list, our chief guest. So, but the host has reminded me. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, lunch is served. At your discretion, Prime Minister, let us know.
So let's break off for lunch. Thank you very much for an excellent session. And the last clap for our presenters this morning.
Enjoy convenience today with Airtel Money School Pay. Dial *185#, select option 6, School Fees, select option 2, School Pay, select option 1, Pay Fees, enter student number, enter the amount, enter the PIN number to complete payment. Beat the back-to-school hustle today. Pay school fees conveniently using Airtel Money. Airtel Money, simple, instant, secure.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Mpango is a celebration that marks the day King Oyo was enthroned after the death of his father, Omkama Patrick Olimi Kaboyo, in 1995. On Thursday, the 12th of September 2019, all roads will lead to Karuzika Royal Palace in Fort Portal, Kabarole District, for the commemoration of the 24th coronation anniversary